Hi, I'm Holly Agnes Higgins. Years ago, there was a woman who took a lot of my personal growth classes, but she never said anything during the discussions. With the other students, I always knew how they were doing with the material because they'd give me lots of feedback. But not with this woman. I really couldn't tell if her life was improving or not. But she kept showing up month after month, so I assumed that something was working for her. Then I taught the Detox Letter. This is a powerful and safe way to detox emotions from your body. When I first started talking about it, I noticed that she sat up a little bit straighter in her chair and kind of leaned forward. She also started taking notes, which she rarely did. A few weeks later, we were having a class discussion about people's experiences, including writing their detox letters, and to my astonishment, she raised her hand to speak. "I've written 4 detox letters in the last 2 weeks," she said, "and for the first time in I don't know how long, my knees don't hurt. I'm also sleeping better than I have in years." She was smiling from ear to ear, and you could tell that she felt really good about what she was experiencing. I was thrilled for her. I'd actually had a similar experience years earlier when I was first learning this technique too, but it was with my right hip. In my case, it took 6 detox letters before I noticed a significant difference, but it did change. The ache that had been with me constantly subsided, and even more to my surprise, a gifted body worker suddenly showed up in my reality. This after years of seeking help to no avail. Somehow, releasing all those old emotions not only reduced my physical pain, but it also created the space for me to receive help. The Detox Letter is one of the most powerful personal growth techniques I know, and it's still something that I use to this day. It's deceptively simple and requires very little skill. In fact, you don't have to have any experience processing your emotions for it to work. You just need to be willing. And that's the key, because for years I wasn't. I'd been taught that it wasn't okay to have certain emotions, so there was no way I was going to admit that I had them, let alone use a technique to vent and release them. And it's funny because I would eagerly do all kinds of physical detoxes, taking nasty supplements to cleanse my body, but I wouldn't go anywhere near an emotional detox. That all changed one night. My new neighbor's 2 Dobermans wouldn't stop barking, and it was driving me nuts. Even with all the windows closed in my apartment, I could hear them clearly in every single room. As the barking went on, I became more and more enraged and even filled with hate. I knew it couldn't just be about the dogs because it felt like I was losing it. I just kept getting angrier and angrier. Finally, I went over to my neighbor's house to talk to them, but they weren't home. This just made me more enraged because they'd left the dogs outside and there was nothing I could do about it. I went home and I remembered the detox letter. I was so desperate that I decided to try it. Anything had to be better than what I was experiencing. So I started writing, focusing on my neighbors and how much I hated them right now. I wrote several pages using every cuss word I knew and even making up some new ones. My pages were filled with exclamation points and lots of underlining. I even snapped the lead on my pencil at one point and had to switch to a pen. The more I wrote, the more there was to write. Then, to my surprise, I found myself thinking about a relationship that had recently ended. I'd been aware of feeling sad about that, but not angry and certainly not rageful. But that's exactly how I felt now. I was so angry. I just hated him. I wanted to punish him and make him suffer. So I wrote about that, pouring out all my emotion. I must have written nonstop for 20 minutes. Somewhere in all of this, the dog stopped barking. I noticed it, but kept focusing on venting my anger and hatred towards this man. Then I found myself crying. Underneath the anger and hate was a tremendous amount of hurt. So I wrote about that. Then I was finally done. Spent, actually, but amazingly calm. I hid the letter away, per the technique, and then I went to bed. I slept better that night than I'd slept since this relationship had ended. The next day, I went over to my neighbors to talk to them about their dogs. They were extremely defensive, and the conversation did not go well. That evening, their dogs started barking again. I went back to their house, but both their cars were gone and the lights were out, so I knew they weren't home. I felt enraged again, so when I got home, I started day 2 of the detox letter, focusing all my venting on my neighbors again. This time, it only took a few pages before I started thinking about that relationship that had ended. I felt my anger and rage and hatred for this man all over again, but at a much deeper level. I was actually surprised by how much was still there because I thought I'd gotten it all out the day before. After several pages, the tears started up again and I vented some more hurt. But this time, it didn't stop with hurt. I actually found myself feeling really alone and lonely. So I wrote about that. Then I was done. I hid the letter away again per the technique and decided to take a shower. I felt more peaceful than I'd felt the night before, this despite the fact that the dogs were still barking on and off. After my shower, I put in earplugs and turned on some relaxing music, pumping the volume way up so that it almost drowned out the dogs. By the time I went to bed, they'd stopped barking. The next day, I called the neighborhood association. Unlike when I talked with the neighbors, I wasn't feeling hostile anymore, just determined to remedy the situation. The association assured me that they'd take care of it. It was now the 3rd and final day of the detox letter. I pulled it out from where I had hidden it and carefully read every single word per the instructions. To my amazement, I found myself getting bored. The emotional charge was gone. As per the technique, I then burned each page, holding each piece of paper at the top and lighting the bottom, forcing me to release the page at a certain point or get burned, a metaphor for what happens when we won't vent and release these toxic emotions. That night, the dogs didn't bark, nor the next, nor the next. Now, a few days later, I heard them again, but only for a few minutes. This went on for weeks, where I'd hear the dogs once in a while, but only for a short period of time. I continued writing detox letters. I was angry about some stuff happening in my family, as well as at work. Each time I completed a letter, I felt remarkably better, and to my wonder, the situation always improved. This is when my hips started feeling better too, as well as when the talented body worker showed up. I'd heard years earlier that nothing changes until you do, and now I was experiencing that in spades. I even received a little miracle. Although I now no longer felt any animosity towards my neighbors or their dogs, I'd still feel anxious once in a while that the problem might start back up again. Then one day, another neighbor told me that these people had shipped their dogs back to their primary residence in another state. I guess I wasn't the only one who'd complained. It's really true. Nothing changes until you do. And when you do change, the situation can change. Changing your emotional state, detoxing your emotions, is one of the fastest ways to change your reality. Like energy attracts like energy. When you're angry, rageful, or filled with hate, like I was, you attract more things to feel angry, rageful, and hateful about. But when you vent and release those emotions, you don't. Same with loneliness and hurt. When you won't vent and release those emotions, you attract more things to feel hurt and lonely about. So what exactly is the detox letter and how does it work? For those of you who like things written down, I've created a 1-page summary of this technique and it's available for free on my website. Basically, the detox letter is a safe and very effective way to release emotion. It's a 3-day process that begins with writing a letter to whomever or about whatever you want. As I indicated before, you're not going to send it. At the end of 3 days, you're actually going to burn it. So you write about whatever is bothering you, being as real as you can be without any censoring. No one is going to read this but you, so be as honest as you can. When you're done writing the first day, you hide it away. Again, this is a metaphor for what people usually do with their emotions. They feel them a little, and then they tuck the rest away in their subconscious mind or in their body. On the second day, and it doesn't have to be 24 hours, just the second day, you pull out your letter from wherever you hid it, and you write some more, really letting yourself vent and release whatever you're feeling, again, with no censoring. Maybe yesterday took 15 minutes, but today takes 25, or vice versa. Sometimes I've written for as short as 10 minutes and other times for as long as 45. Whatever is right for you. When you're done, you tuck the letter away again. All this while, your subconscious mind is watching. It's seeing what you normally do, feeling your feelings at a certain depth and then hiding them away again, versus fully releasing them. This is important because on day 3, you're going to do something very different that sends a really strong message to this part of yourself, a message that your subconscious mind will then implement, which is, on day 3, you read every word you've written until you're positively bored. If for some reason you're not bored and you start to feel an emotional charge again, that's okay. Just complete the process I'm about to describe and then wait a day or two and write another detox letter. So after you've carefully read every single word, create a safe environment to burn your pages, perhaps over a metal bowl or in your fireplace. Then you're going to hold each piece of paper at the top, as I mentioned before, and then light the paper at the bottom. I'm actually going to go outside right now to demonstrate this. So as you can see, we're outside now, and I'm holding the piece of paper at the top, my detox letter, one page of it, and I'm going to light the bottom, and you do this for each page. Now as you can see, there's going to come a certain point where I need to let this go. And this is a metaphor that your subconscious mind understands, that unless you let go of these toxic emotions, they can harm you. But when your subconscious mind sees what you're doing, it will respond. Once the ashes have cooled, then scatter them in a safe way. And again, you do this for each and every page of your detox letter. Okay, so let's head back inside. Now again, if you weren't bored when you read every single line, word by word, that's absolutely okay. I've actually experienced that many times. It doesn't mean the detox letter didn't work. It just means that you have more layers to vent and release. This is often true for big issues. But if you keep at it, you'll get to the bottom, which you'll know because your words will finally bore you. The emotional charge will have dissipated. Again, this technique is posted on my website if you prefer written instructions. There really are no limits to what the detox letter can do for you, nor are there any limits to what emotions it can help you vent and release. I've focused on anger, rage, hate, loneliness, and hurt here, but it works equally well for fear, worry, doubt, confusion, anxiety, hopelessness, or even despair. Any emotion, really, that you want to detox from your system. And you don't even need to know what these are. I've written many letters where I had no idea how I was feeling in the beginning. I just knew that I was in an emotional state that I didn't want to be in. And as I wrote, I discovered how I was feeling. Good luck with writing, and I hope that you find the detox letter as liberating as I have. Thank you for this time together. I wish you an abundance of love's magic and love's miracles. Until next time.